Protecting wood from rot, sunlight, weather conditions, and fire is essential for long-lasting wooden structures. While some of the methods based on biocidal action are effective, they can be quite harmful in use and at the end of their life cycle. Novel, bio-based or environmentally benign methods are emerging from the labs, and oftentimes the inspiration is derived from centuries of tradition.
Ja tämä luontainen harmaantuminen, niin tämä on kuitenkin se yksi kestävimpiä pintakäsittelyjä. Et meillähän on esimerkkejä satoja vuosista vanhasta harmaantuneista taloista.
Many things what people have used in built environment in several centuries ago, those are still valid now. Earlier we didn't use any paints, but still some 1,000 years old wooden church is still standing in Norway.
Another natural way to protect wood includes choosing the right time to harvest.
Kun puu asettuu talvilepoon, niin se vetäisee kaikki solukuissa olevat ravinteet juuristoon ja täyttää yksinkertaisesti sanoen solukon niin sanotulla pakkasnesteellä. Eli lepotilakaadossa, talvikaadossa, niin puun rungossa, solukoissa ei ole ravinteita, joita esimerkiksi lahottajasienet tarvitsee sitten kasvauksensa.
The physiological reason for this has been extensively studied in Japan.
Tokion yliopiston biologian laitos on tehnyt nyt tutkimuksia siitä, minkä takia temppeliin käytettävä puu, joka on pääsääntöisesti sukipuuta, niin kaadetaan kuun kierron mukaan loppukuun aikana. Ja siitä on ihan tieteellistä näyttöä, että silloin jostain kumman syystä puun valkuaiset painuu tavallaan niin kuin puun juuristoon ja sieltä puuttuu ne valkuaiset, jotka on ensimmäinen semmoinen kasvupohja lahottajasienille.
Although wooden exteriors are most often painted, there are many benefits to choosing alternative weatherproofing methods. At Aalto University, the Wood Material Science Group is focusing on understanding and improving wood modification methods which permanently alter the cell wall structure. Modified wood is not treated with any biocides, and it remains non-toxic throughout its life cycle.
Basically, there's probably 3 different types of modification. There's what's called a chemical modification, which is a reaction with the wood. Most famous example of that is acetylation, and we have a product called Accoya, which uses that technology.
Acetylation has been known for more than 80 years as a way to make wood more resistant to humidity. In the Accoya process, acetic anhydride, which is a very strong vinegar, is forced into the plant cell wall, converting the free hydroxyls in the wood into acetyl groups, thus reducing the wood's ability to absorb water.
Then we have what we call impregnation modification, which is basically you put something soluble in the wood, you polymerize it, and it stays in the wood. But it has to go in the cell wall, otherwise it's not a modification. And then we have thermal modification, which I think Finland's led the world with thermal modification, where basically you heat the wood, but in an environment where oxygen isn't so readily available, so you don't really want to set light to the wood.
Although these modified wood products are already on the market, the scientific understanding of how the methods affect wood at the cellular level still needs further research.
I've done quite a bit of work recently, again with Aalto, looking at thermal modification and reviewing what we understand about it. And there seems to be a real difference with thermal modification depending on how much moisture there is around when you're doing that thermal modification. It affects the water sorption behaviour, it affects the strength behaviour, it affects all sorts of things, and we really don't know why this is.
But thermal modification is very complicated because there are a lot of degradation reactions that happen at the same time. So later, after the modification, it's really hard to say what has been responsible for a certain property change. But it's quite clear that primarily we are moving hemicelluloses. And hemicelluloses, they have the greatest concentration of water-accessible hydroxyl groups as absorption sites. So it's kind of logical if we remove those, that the water uptake is lowered. But very specifically, whether it's the number of sorption sites or other kind of cross-linking reactions or more complicated reactions, there are different opinions, and it's really hard to pinpoint that to just one aspect.
But again, we do know that we can anneal some of those effects out by going through a sorption cycle. And that is uncannily similar to aged wood. And there's always this debate about, well, can we age wood by heating it, speed up that aging process and get the same effect? The answer is probably no, we can't. But there do seem to be some similarities there. So that's an important area of research, trying to understand it. It is very important, because I've been to see a company recently that's doing thermal modification. They've made a very slight change to their process, and it involves probably using rather less moisture than they were originally. And their behaviour is completely different.
The most extreme version of thermal wood treatment is charring, an ancient process used all over the world.
You don't need to paint it, you don't need to stain it. It's a very old Japanese technique, but what's really interesting is when you pre-burn it, the char on the outside of the wood actually prevents fire. It actually becomes an insulator for the fire, which is why when you see a forest fire go through, big trees stay standing. The outside is burned, but if you scrape it away, it's a living tree inside. And that char is a natural way trees protect themselves. That carbon on the outside becomes a protectant for the inside. And so we now use those same tools in the way we actually protect our buildings from weather, protect our buildings from fire on the outside.
Jos ajatellaan, että mennään historiaa taaksepäin, niin kaikki aidan tolpat aikanaan poltettiin sen takia, että sinne lahottajasieni ja kosteus ei pääse siihen puuhun niin helposti, kun se puun solu on poltettu. Eli se tavallaan se toukka ei ole kiinnostunut poltetusta puusta, kun se ei pysty syömään sitä. Ja se kosteus ja sieni ja muu, niin ei oikeastaan sienirihmasto ei pysty tarttumaan myöskään siihen poltettuun puuhun.
As another alternative to toxic wood preservatives, researchers have also turned their attention to highly functional components produced by wood itself, such as lignin. In an Aalto University spin-off, research on lignin nanoparticles has led to the development of a natural wood coating.
We take the technical lignin as we get it from the pulp industry, and we dissolve it in an organic solvent. We pour this dissolved lignin into water, and due to these molecular interactions between the lignin and the different solvents, they spontaneously form spherical particles.
The lignin spheres solve one big challenge related to the use of lignin, the heterogeneous nature of natural lignin. When modified into the spherical particles, lignin is transformed into a predictable, uniform substrate, applicable for a huge variety of end uses. In trees, lignin acts as glue in the cell wall. This property can be utilized to create bio-based strong adhesives. Trees also produce thousands of other compounds, so-called extractives, which constitute only about 2% of the dry weight of trees, but their potential is immense.
Extractives are the small fraction of molecules which actually are taking part to protect living organisms and plants and trees for different type of external stresses. And these stresses can be, for example, the microbial attack, it can be the UV radiation and other type of oxidative stresses. This feature can be again translated into the man-made materials.
At VTT, high-consistency nanocellulose research has led to a discovery that could replace toxic bromine-based fire retardants. When nanocellulose is mixed with pigments, it significantly reduces the burning of wood.
I think it is evident that we are really facing severe challenges, and materials bioeconomy is one way to provide solutions to tackle the challenges. And this is definitely so large area where people need to work together that each single individual research line can't tackle the whole challenge. And I think this is again all about learning from nature. I think that this is again all about ecosystems where the multiple players are working towards a certain balance and certain understanding.
Future developments in both wood preservation and sustainable bio-based materials will require not only traditional knowledge, but also cutting-edge research that draws on the expertise of all disciplines, as well as nature's own ingenuity.